Welcome to the program. I'm Patty Pagaling with pesticide-free Ojai Valley, here above the old and decommissioned Matilaha Dam, to report on the use of the herbicide Aquamaster on Arundo donax, the invasive bamboo-like non-native plant that is surviving here in the upper Ventura River Watershed, despite all efforts by the Ventura County Watershed Protection District to kill it with poisonous pesticides that eventually find their way into your local drinking water. I'm here with Steve Sprinkel of Gozo Farm and co-owner of Farmer and the Cook Market and Restaurant in Ojai, and we'll be talking about how local water agencies lack the ability to remove pesticide toxins from the drinking water and other issues regarding the Arundo donax invasion here in our watershed. And we'll be visiting a location nearby where we'll examine proof that the pesticide spraying on the Arundo donax has been unsuccessful. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Thanks, Patty. Glad to be here.
Steve, could you tell us about your major concerns regarding the herbicide Aquamaster?
Aquamaster essentially is Roundup under another name. And Roundup herbicide, which is the active ingredient, is glyphosate, is the most commonly used pesticide in the United States and probably in the world by volume. With the advent of genetically modified crops, we've had a huge increase in the amount of this herbicide being used. Prior to the advent of genetically modified crops, the epidemiology on Roundup, glyphosate, and its cousin, Aquamaster, was fairly limited. However, when you consider the huge tonnage of glyphosate that's being used now worldwide, one has to consider the implications to human health and the environment. And we're beginning to see those now. Unfortunately, a lot of this information is anecdotal. Unfortunately, what we have with regard to regulatory agencies from county, state, all the way to the federal government is a circumstance in which the fox is guarding the hen house, in which Monsanto, which is the patent owner on glyphosate, which of course is now expired, and who is the manufacturer of Aquamaster, has been able to manage the regulatory circumstance, the regulatory process, by having significant corporate players in the Monsanto network work in government at high levels with the EPA and the United States Department of Agriculture. The United States Department of Agriculture is a co-owner of some of the patents with regard to genetically modified crops. So, of course, even the government itself has a significant conflict of interest with regard to this pesticide. Now, the circumstance here, which we find in the Matilaha, is that Aquamaster is being used in order to so-called eradicate this noxious plant pest. And everyone in the agricultural community knows that Roundup is a powerful and successful means of interdicting on certain kinds of pests, weeds, for example, weeds. But the issue here is that it has never been proven and is frequently proven to be not have a significant long-term impact on grasses like Arundo donax, Johnson grass, and some of its other cousins in the rhizomatous grass family. And so right now, what we're seeing here in the Matilaha is a significant pouring on of this pesticide. It's actually essentially an experiment.
So can we find a place nearby that can show us that the effects of the herbicide has been unsuccessful?
Yeah, we sure can. I've seen a couple of spots just in the last few days.
Well, then let's go check it out.
Let's go.
So we're here just downstream of the Matilaha headwaters, and where does this water go, Steve?
This water in the Matilaha Creek is headed down towards the Ventura River, and it joins the Ventura River south of Matilaha Dam. Then thereafter it disappears into a percolating geology in which it just disappears into the ground, and then thereafter that water that we see here now becomes an aquifer that three major municipal water companies pump from to provide water for the populace: Casitas, Miners Oaks Water District, and Ventura County River Water District. My well at my farm also is in the aquifer that's fed by this creek.
And what do we have here behind us?
Right here we have approximately, I would say, about a half an acre of wild area that's been recently treated by the contractor. Looks like they've cut down the arundo and they've been treating it with a backpack sprayer. This is the third time that they've treated this area.
Actually, it's the 7th time. The first year they used over 3,000 gallons of Aquamaster plus the surfactant and plus the coloring, the blue-green coloring.
I had heard that they were going to be spraying again, and I sort of did a little inventory and looked at all the arundo that was growing back, and I walked through a bunch of arundo, and I had seen where it had been cut back. I had seen where it was regrowing, and I really wasn't amazed that it had regrown, but I did see that there had obviously been a lot of work here that had been done in order to try to arrest it. And so, as a layman, as an educated layman, as an agriculturalist, it doesn't seem to me that a significant amount of success has been found with regard to what they're doing here, especially since this is the 7th time. And so what we're looking at here, the material that's been cut down already, that's some significant regrowth. And what's the timeline that they have for arresting this problem?
From what I understand, it'll take several years for them to have some kind of control, but the term eradication doesn't even really apply because they'll never really be able to eradicate it. And one of the arundo experts in Santa Barbara that I spoke with actually said that it's impossible to eradicate. So it's virtually a chemical treadmill that we're on. So what are the chemicals and materials that are going into our water?
Well, the active ingredient in the herbicide itself is glyphosate. And then there are inert ingredients, which are surfactants as well as synergists that aid the material in being effective. There's also a dye that they apply so that they can see where they've worked in the past. And the testing that has been done, well, that is conducted on municipal water resources, is a historical plan, and they have developed a number of baselines. In other words, they want to be able to test for materials that are hardcore cancer-causing agricultural chemicals and with an established history. And then this is a brand new experience, and so a baseline has not been established. When they test for these things, it's fairly believable science. But when they get the stuff in the test tube, they don't say, "Oh yeah, that's the atrazine," or "That's chlorpyrifos," and so they've never really established the means for defining whether or not this material is present in the water supply. It would be good to see if Cal EPA or Ventura County River or Miners Oaks or Casitas, which especially Casitas, has established any kind of baseline monitoring to see if glyphosate is detectable in the water supply. I'm interested in it myself. We don't have a test on my well, but we depend on the science that's derived from Ventura County River Water District, whose well is less than 200 feet from my well.
From what I understand, they don't test for glyphosate very often, and another part of that has to do with that glyphosate does break down to several metabolites, which they do not test for, and those metabolites are just as toxic as glyphosate. Since we know the chemicals are in our water, how can they remove them?
Well, that's just the thing. The only way to remove them is to not apply them. Once they're in the water, there's no method that's been developed that will filter out chemicals. They can test to see if there's a chemical present. If the chemical that's present reaches a certain level of contamination, they'll try to find out where it came from, and then they will find out if it's possible to to curtail its use. And so what we're involved in here is a great experiment. We don't really know the level of contamination, but we have to assume there's a significant level of contamination. This is a wild area. From the dam all the way to the headwaters at the falls, no one's using any significant amount of any chemicals here, but they're using an awful lot of Roundup. Well, they're using a lot of glyphosate, let's say, in here. So they could test this water. They could test this water as it enters the impoundment at the dam to see how much contamination is present. They all have wells in this river, and what we're pumping is river water. So this stuff disappears into the rocks right below the diversion, and that's where we get all our water. So no, we're not testing, and this is a brand new experiment, and I don't really know. I think it's really it would be good to interview some of the officials who are tasked with monitoring and guaranteeing the water safety, and see what they say.
Well, I know they do random testing, and the thing is they don't test for the metabolites. That's the big deal about it, I think. And in Denmark, they actually have banned some of the use of glyphosate because they found it in their drinking water. So other countries are finding glyphosate in their water and taking action.
Undoubtedly, these tests exist. Right now, the authorities are logically more interested in finding out if there's a coliform bacteria from human waste.
So thank you, Steve Sprinkel, for coming on the program, and I hope you come back to update us for more news about what's happening with the watershed.
I'll be happy to help. Thanks for having me.
We want to thank you for watching the program. I'm Patty Pagaling with Pesticide-Free Ojai Valley. If you want to learn more about Pesticide-Free Ojai Valley, you can contact us at www.pesticidefreeohivalley.org. Thank you.
Environmental impacts on our coastal communities have never been greater. From pollution to climate change, coastal communities are at ground zero. The Surf and River Report brings you the latest developments impacting our coastal communities. We'll talk with experts about how environmental pollution, development, and climate change is affecting our coastal and river ecosystems. It's all right here on the Surf and River Report.